Karen,
Yes.
I love it.
Me too.
Nope.
What do we love?
Nope. I love when we have New York Times bestselling authors on our show.
Oh, me too.
You know why I love it?
Why do you love it?
Well, because there's this little thing called quantum entanglement, right? That means that then we must also be New York Times bestselling
You are
authors.
trying to get in.
No,
You're
no,
like
no,
the
no.
sucker fish on the shark.
Do you want to know what our latest bestselling book is called?
I do.
It's called Practical Intuition.
Ah.
But that was quite a while ago. Now, we happen to have just released another book called
Have we?
The Prism. Yes. And it just so happens that we have very nicely mapped the 7 developmental wounds that silently run people's lives and gives them practical intuition-based systems to rebuild them from the inside out.
Oh, wow.
And by we, I of course mean that today's guest has done all that, for which we thank her profusely because, again, quantum entanglement and all that.
She's
right?
the shark.
Today, we're going to learn how to differentiate between anxiety and intuition, how to turn trauma into transformation and pathology into potential, and how to consciously design our next chapter. Ambitious enough?
I think so.
Then let's get started. Skeptic Musician starts now. I think I just said Skeptic Musicians.
You did. Skeptic Visions.
It's close enough. All right. My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything.
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
Hey there, I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
Welcome back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians, a show where your gut feeling has to pass a fact check for it to change your life.
Wow.
Our guest today is New York Times bestselling author, a consultant to billion-dollar companies and anyone who's ever had a feeling they couldn't shake, and the woman that Demi Moore calls her greatest gift. And while we're name-dropping, she's pretty chummy with Jennifer Aniston and Nicole Kidman, too. But anyway.
Entanglement.
Entanglement. We are very chummy with those people, too. But she's here to convince even the skeptics in the room that intuition isn't mystical. It's a skill. And that feeling that you can't shake apparently has a name, a structure, and a system. She's the author of the Prism, 7 Steps to Heal Your Past and Transform Your Future. She's appeared on The Oprah Winfrey Show, Good Morning America, The View, CNN, ABC News, The Today Show, Hollywood Reporter, and has now finally made it onto the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Laura Day, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the show. Welcome to the big time.
Well, thank you. Good to be here. And I love me a skeptic.
All right.
Well, then you are in good company because we ask the questions that need to be asked, right? We're not cynical. We just want to make sure that we understand these things pragmatically. You are from the New York area, so you completely understand why I am the way I am, right? We can't just take things on face value. And the thing that struck me, one of them is many things struck me when I was doing research on you, but one of the things that struck me most about you is how intuitive you are. And some of the things that you have done that have proven and showed your intuition. Of course, I won't call you psychic because you don't like that. So I'll just say you're very intuitive. And
she still came on our show.
And she's still. So you might want to check your settings because they may be off a little bit. No, but so you wrote this book about intuition, and now you've gone further into the totality of who we are, right? Which is the prism. Can you explain to us that concept, that metaphor of the prism?
Yes. The initial seed I didn't come up with. The structure of a human being, which I call the prism, is it really follows the chakras, which are millennia old. But we are energetic machines, and to take that down from the esoterica, what we do creates our world, and unfortunately, who we are creates what we do, and even more unfortunately, who we are was created by our genetics and the first 7 years of our life before we could say, hey, I'm the responsible one? That does not make sense. I don't accept that. We didn't have that questioning capacity. And so our egos, and ego gets a bad rap, keeps creating the same life over and over. And everyone can relate to, oh my God, this guy is completely different. No, he's not. Unless you have had some catalyst. No, he's not. But I know you're not gonna listen, so we'll just wait 2 years till your next,
Right.
good psych med breakup. So the Prism really isn't a book about changing yourself internally. It's about doing something different.
Mm.
And it's about the ego, which is much maligned, but the ego is your I.
Mm.
Without the ego, you are a blob. You are just a blob of energy. And people speak about energy if it's as if it's good or bad. It's not. Energy is neither good nor bad. It's how we create it. So that's really what the prism is about. Because I realized you can have all the information, you can have everything going for you, and you can still mess it up, and what people need is a user's guide to themselves.
I love that.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And when especially, we
With
take
pictures.
you say that we take in all the same energy, but we react or we refract it differently, right? That's kinda what makes us who we are. So, what does it mean when you say that we all take in the same energy but refract it differently?
So, you speak as a physicist. I mean, energy is energy, it is all one energy.
Mhm.
But what we do with it, yeah, and you see it simply, people walk into a room, and the room reorganizes according to how they interface. So that our energy is one, and every science now is
Oh, no.
basically speaking about the unified field, whether it's biology or or the astrology, astronomy. I guess people don't think astrology is science. Astronomy,
Some people don't think it's a science.
right? And
Mhm.
well, and frankly, coming from, 3 generations of scientists, science isn't a science. When I was young, all the medical facts that my doctors all the generations
Mhm.
of doctors said were facts
Yeah.
are now not facts. When I was young, hydrogenated oils, synthetic oils were supposed to be better for you than natural ones.
Right.
Now we know, at least for the moment, that's not true, and who knows who will come and disprove it.
Mhm.
Right, and it's especially more, complicated when we know if we're talking about quantum physics, that we create our own reality. So perhaps natural oils might be better for those that are on that path, while others at the time, the other oil was better. Who knows?
Interesting. That is an interesting point of view. I do think that as machines, we have a consensus reality and a consensus system. And my experience, I never use I believe or even I think. It really is experience. I'm 67 years old. I have been teaching for 45 years. And so I've had tens of thousands of people who are doing everything right the same way over and over again, for example. So I get to see you do this, this happens. And because I'm a little OCD, I document it all
Mhm.
and have no memory. So I document everything. And what I see is yes, people have subtle differences and we are all unique, like
Mhm.
snowflakes, yuck. But um, but the reality is the basic machinery is the same, and, which I say, when someone's shirt slips, I'm like, "Really? No one's ever seen a boob before?" The machinery, the mechanics are basically
Mhm.
the same, and that's fortunate for us because what works for A to get success often works for B also. There's a mechanics to it, just like there's a mechanics to your car or your washing machine, and I think the more spiritual among us don't enjoy the idea that we actually are mechanical beings, with a wonderful connection to something bigger that is also us. But we are, and the good news is we can do something differently. The bad news is the answer is either not inside of you or you can't find it. The answer comes from a catalyst, from something outside of yourself, which is why not only do I write self help, but I open myself up to as many experiences as I can because I know no matter how intuitive I am, I'm going to walk into that same wall thinking it's a door over and over again until a catalyst comes in and turns me even a tiny little bit another direction, and so that's what self-help is for me, and that's what changes.
Mm,
So, how is it then if we all are similar machines, right? And you can sometimes put these two machines in the exact same environment, and one is going to have such a different experience. Like, maybe they're refracting differently. Why? Like, why does someone, do all the same things that someone else does, and their life seems to be great, and their life seems to be, not great? Like,
First of all, they're actually probably not doing all the same things, and they're certainly not doing it in the same way. But
Mhm,
the other thing is, staying with a car metaphor, you know, one car got its gears stripped early in life. And so it encounters a certain roadway and it can't navigate it until it goes and makes the repair. Or maybe it needs to change a different road, but it thinks it can drive that road,
Mhm.
because that's the road that's there. Whereas the other car has been well maintained and in its early building, everything was put in place and it has good maintenance because it learned good maintenance. And so it can really deal with just about any roadway. I mean, the Prism isn't for everyone. If you had a really great first 7 years,
mhm,
and if you are genetically pretty solid, the Prism's redundant and it's a waste. The Prism is for people who weren't equipped well in early childhood, weren't their ego wasn't built, their structure wasn't built, well, and there are 3 phases which I go into. Or it is for people who just really want to make a change and they wanna make it a little more quickly, because people who are equipped, they can make any change and make it work, but
mhm,
sometimes it takes more time. So that's really a why, and I am one of, 4 children, 1 who doesn't function, 2 who have suicided. And I really very early on in life looked for those catalysts
Mm.
and had the gift of having both a very weird brain and responsibilities I didn't have the information to deal with. So intuition, which is a survival skill,
mhm.
good sociopaths are intuitive, that it's not a kind of gift. It's
Yeah.
just a brain wiring kicked in and it really saved my life.
Wow. Yeah. So the prism you say is damaged by unresolved developmental wounds, right? So, for,
Yeah,
but you also mentioned that the person that dates the new guy who feels he's a completely different guy, but in fact is not aware of the same choices that they're making.
that's
So,
right.
how does someone become more aware so that they can stop making those choices?
Well, that's really what the entire, book is about,
Aha.
but in short, and the book is actually made in a way, and I very much believe in this, that you don't have to understand it.
Mhm,
All you have to do is go to the back of each section, and if what you want is love, that's very much 4th and 2nd ego center, so I really take it apart, and you do a tiny thing differently that does not resonate with you. Because if it resonates with you, I love it when people say, "Oh, that didn't resonate with me." I'm like, yeah, if you wanna make a change, you're gonna have to do something that doesn't resonate. Because if it resonates with the problem."
mhm,
Right.
Um so for me, I'm not a going out person, and when I wanted to make a big change in my life because something was going not well, I made myself say yes to invitations. I hated it, my feet still haven't recovered, but, high heels, New York,
mhm.
but it did completely change completely unrelated things in my life.
Mm.
So because of ADD, I just forgot the question, so if I didn't answer it, please let me know.
No, you did, but how so here's a question based on what you just said. If this going out changed something completely unrelated, how did you well, I mean, I think
I
you might be
understand
different, but
now.
how did you know that yeah.
Okay, so one of the things I say that my publishers say nobody understands, but I disagree, is you cannot think outside the box. You are the box.
Mm.
So what I did is I looked at someone who had the thing that I wanted, the dynamic I wanted, and I'm being a little cagey because it was a personal thing and
Mhm, sure.
important, and I was so happy when it was resolved. But I looked at what they did, and one of the things they did was they just, sounding like a psychic here, said yes to life. And, in a way that I found, exhausting, kind of, like, all over the place, but I thought because I'm pretty contained, and I thought, well, I don't know. I think it's really a waste of time. I mean, who wants to go to like a dog food opening? But, you know, I'm going to try it because this person has created what I want to create, and it's the thing that I think resonates the least about her life with me. And I did. I just copied someone
Mhm.
who had what I wanted, and I copied something that I went like, "Ugh," and you see very quickly whether a new behavior will yield results or not, because that's the other thing I don't like about kind of these developmental tools. You have to have faith. If you have to have faith, it's not a tool, it is a belief. You
Mhm.
know, with the Prism, and with even going on YouTube or finding a friend who has what you want and doing what you judge the most about their behavior, but that's still safe, is that in a few days you see a different result. From left field, things start happening differently because when you do something that doesn't resonate, that's out of your reality, what happens is you encounter different people, different situations. I mean, there's nothing magical about this. Yes, in a more metaphysical sense, you also change your frequency because you're copycatting. It's like they say, smiling whether you're happy or not alerts your brain that you're happy and you feel happier.
Right. Fake it till you make it.
Um, which I don't always believe in. I mean, piloting a plane, you don't wanna fake it till you
Yeah, right.
Good point.
oh, but it really it's so you can do it, copy someone, but it shifts you. So the way you use the prism is, okay, there are many ways. One is to just notice from stem to stern, from the base of your spine to the top of your head, because we're a roadmap. Where is it that I am, that I experience stuckness? And often there is pathology in that area. Often that is where your back's hurt your whole life, or where you have a little scoliosis, or where your migraines originate. Often there's because we're one system.
Mhm.
When I used to do a lot of healing, people would come in and say, "Listen, don't worry about the migraines, but I really want to fix the skin condition." But we're a system. And and so when you change that, you change everything. But again, you can't do it. We're so encouraged to look inward, which is a fallacy. And it's the same kind of fallacy which you have to heal before you fall in love. No, you're hungry, you connect, and then your old baggage won't fit through that new door, and then the work happens. But often getting what you want is the first step in healing. And then you've got to do the hard work to become someone who can meet it, but you do that by meeting it. I don't think the changes are made. My observation is people work on the same problem over and over and over and over again with no change. And then a bolt of lightning hits them and all of a sudden it's okay. And I hope for people listening that the one thing they take away is you've got to put yourself in those situations doing
Mm.
something that doesn't feel right to experience that bolt of lightning, and then notice what happens.
Right.
If you don't get if the pieces of what you want aren't coming in, then yes, you need to do something differently.
So that's why we say that growth happens at the edge of your comfort zones, right? Because you're in a rut and you do the same thing over and over again, nothing's going to change.
But by the same token, if you do something and differently, and then you get what you want, and so now you're saying is now is when the work happens.
Right.
But wouldn't a lot of people think, "Well, I got what I want. Now I'm happy," and they don't even think about the work? Like, do you
Okay,
find that that happens?
no.
Oh.
I'm gonna ask you because I don't think the work works that way, you know?
Mhm.
We have this very, punishing Puritan I've been learning French and I speak Italian and I have too many languages in my head to get the words out. Puritanical
Mhm.
view that somehow it has to come from, it has to be hard work, it has to be punishing, and you only get rewarded if you're, keep all the commandments, and
Right.
that's just not how it works. I mean, you know, think think now of the last thing you got that you really wanted. And then, oh my God, wow, your show's up 7 notches and now you have to be in the public and wait, I forgot that I'm an introvert and I don't want to do that. Or I mean, I wanted so badly to be partnered. And I was single for 2 years. And by the way, I knew that I picked from an old Prism. So you know how I dated this time? My 2 friends who had 30-year marriages, I only dated men they picked for me. If
Wow.
I liked someone or someone liked me at a party, for example, that was an absolute no-go. I didn't take No, I'm serious. I was
N
really
I mean,
disciplined.
that's impressive to be able to have that kind of fortitude to
I
I mean,
mean,
you like someone, but
I did something
Yeah,
similar though.
that's
but
good.
I did not wanna, I mean, yeah, it does, the D word, discipline,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it takes discipline because, when I met my husband, he was so boring. He had no deep-seated rage. He was employed, you know?
Oh,
I
man.
it was, he had no significant psychopathology. It was so boring. And, didn't feel resonant at all. I had
Mhm.
a manic depressive mother I had to remind to put clothes on before going out, and then,
Mm.
violent father, who knew how to hit because he was a doctor, knew where to not leave a bruise, and so
Wow.
this man was so, I mean, you know, even keeled and employed, and he was a screen and TV writer, and he was like, and I had a no Hollywood rule that I've had my whole life, and blah, blah, blah. I have been in this wonderful relationship for 15 years, but I got what I wanted, which was someone who would love me and accompany me. I can't tell you, everything was hard, from having to all of a sudden share closet space to having to check if friends could come over, negotiating children. I mean, we were older, but negotiating, grown children,
Mhm.
and even like what side of the bed you sleep in. By the way, the first man I've ever been with who was gainfully employed, when he first got a huge job in London and said, "Well, honey, I'll get you a fabulous house. We're going to London." I'm like hell we are. Like, excuse me, I have a job. Like, I have a fabulous house. Like, and so there's a lot of negotiation.
Mhm.
I got my wish, yeah, but it was a shit show for a while.
I mean, isn't it always?
That's what I'm saying. It always is, and so you get a much more effective way is to do something differently,
Mhm.
encounter your wish in a way that it sticks long enough for you not to push it away, which when you in a disciplined way change your behavior, it does.
Mhm.
And then, you're interfacing with something outside of yourself. You're a closed system. That doesn't change. I mean, it changes with age, unfortunately, but,
Mm.
but basically your structure doesn't change. But when you're in in interaction with anything, it changes. I mean, when I feel stuck even writing, I go out, I sit on a bench, and I let someone strike up a conversation, or I strike it up, but as an introvert, it's usually I wait for someone else to do it. And then I something flows because they're a catalyst.
Mm. So then
Mhm.
how where does intuition fit into all this stuff? Because everything you're talking about is very practical, make yourself uncomfortable, do something that doesn't resonate. You actually are very good at following your intuition to direct you in certain directions. I mean,
No,
you
no, 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 no.
well,
It was like George Costanza.
I'm good at training people to be intuitive. You are your own worst intuitive. I am my own worst intuitive because you don't see what you don't see.
right.
You
Mhm.
find what you're looking for, you scare yourself to death, or you give yourself fantasy, neither of which really helps. But what intuition plays in a couple ways. One is there's a whole, what I call a non-local life that's going on that we have to be aware of. What do I mean by that? When you woke up this morning, who were you arguing with in your head? That's not in your head. That's actually happening. And when you and my systems, my books show you how to do this, but when you check it out, you find, oh wait, that person 1,000 miles away was actually having that discussion with you that you woke up with and then had for the next 45 minutes and completely ruled your day. Or when you're in a room, how much of you is really powerfully present? How much of you is remote viewing, astral projecting in another place? Same thing with precognition. Precognition, it's really important to refine your precognition so it is actionable, day to day. And there are simple methodologies to do this because all of this isn't magical. We magicalize it because spirituality is a multi-billion-dollar business. So why not make a buck? But it really isn't hard. We are structured that way. So it's very important to disengage from the part of intuition that has you not present in this moment, which is the only place you can make change, and in your body and your personal reality, which is the only person who can make change. And it's also important to shift intuition. So shift those non-local perceptions in a way and activations in a way that you are in dialogue with the world you want to be in dialogue with. So you are bumping into the future, the financing for your company, your next true love, whatever it is that you want to bump into. And that's the role intuition plays. So especially in the prism where you're restructuring, you don't just restructure the behaviors in your immediate life. You also restructure your intuitive behaviors, your non-local behaviors. And that's just, everyone's had the experience of you're thinking about a friend and they call that
Mhm.
second you haven't heard from them for 2 years, or deja vu walking into a place. You don't, we're actually pretty economical beings or we wouldn't survive. So if you are having a deja vu and not just obsessively following an ex with your telepathy and your remote viewing, if you're having a deja vu because of economy, there's a reason, there's something for you there. And if you learn to say, deja vu, what's my target? What's here that I might have missed without the deja vu? You learn to actually use your intuition as another simple tool. We spend a lifetime training our intellect. That's what we go to school for. Training our emotions, or we'd all be raping and pillaging. Training your intuition is so important to be not only a master of your present and your space and be able to direct it, but also to create good luck, which really is just really the ability to experience the future and make the change in the present.
Wow, and I think this conversation is so important because we're talking about something that we haven't really discussed too much before. I mean, we've talked about intuition, but when you're talking about doing something that's not your norm, that doesn't resonate with you, a lot of people might think, well, intuitively, I don't want to do that. When I think that's maybe just their comfort zone, right? They just don't want to be uncomfortable, and they're
Well,
mistaking that for
intuitively, they
intuition.
don't wanna do it. It's because none of us we are mammals. Mammals hate
Mhm.
change. Change has risks, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, frankly, even for reptiles, shedding is the space between having an old skin and getting a new one, where your skin is shed, you're the most vulnerable. Nobody
Mhm.
wants to do that,
Right.
which is why we put into place safekeeping behaviors. I mean, one of the things I see a lot is people say, "Oh, okay, I don't wanna be, a stockbroker, as a trader anymore. I want to be a writer." I'm like, great. And half an hour every morning until you write your bestseller, I would keep that 1.5 million a year job.
Yeah.
We do these kind of things that logic is also a gift. And
Mhm.
so one of our first obligation as creatures is as mammals is to take care of the mammal, is to survive. And then from there you can do absolutely anything. And you really can do absolutely anything. I mean, I make my living reading for multi-billion-dollar companies. That is how I make my living. The rest I do in community, and most of it I give away. And, these days it costs much more to write, publish, and promote a book than you will ever make in your return, unless you're a, gazillion-dollar bestseller with a huge media team behind you.
Mhm.
It but when we work together, we are each other's catalysts, and so that coming together in with a filter. So with the filter of your own goals is so important, and I just value that so much. I go on live almost every day on Instagram and people say, "Oh, you're so generous." I'm like, "Yeah, not really. You are healing me because I can't heal me. I avoid what hurts. You are reading me because I can't see me. I have no perspective. No matter how brilliant and intuitive I am for someone else,
Mhm.
can't be for myself." And we toss out community, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Well, and that's a now I guess I understand when you say that you can't intuit for yourself. One of my questions was gonna be, how do we tell intuition apart from anxiety?
That's a really great question, and there is a way to tell. And we can intuit for ourselves, but not by running it through the brain.
Hmm.
One of the things both The Circle, which was my 4th book, and The Prism are about is let's not run the data through our brain because we'll reframe the data in a way that is old. But let's have goals that then intuition works often below conscious awareness to have us encounter in the world the people, the circumstances, the information that we need. There is a mechanical way to engage intuition without having to, sit as the high priestess in purple that allows us to create our lives, and proof is important. I
Mhm.
think belief is a wonderful, courageous thing that I do not entertain, because if I'm jumping out of a burning building, I wanna know the tensile strength of that trampoline below. I don't wanna believe it's gonna be able to catch me and save my life. I think it's really important to be skeptical. Skeptical people are healthy people. Now, my favorite phrase is the good scientist suspends, doesn't get rid of, suspends disbelief and runs the experiment anyway. But the experiment needs to prove itself. So if what you're doing isn't working, do something else. And again, it's not inside you. And of course, I have totally forgotten the question. I just spent 3 days with like 27 sensors on my head to see how my brain works.
Wow.
So I have the glue out of my hair. I can't tell you.
Right. The question was, how do you tell intuition from anxiety?
Oh, so that's a wonderful question, and people ask it because people confuse that so much.
Mhm.
Your subconscious, that wonderful thing that's going on below your awareness, will repress anything you can't do something about, because otherwise you wouldn't survive, you would disintegrate, you would fall apart, and if anyone's ever been overwhelmed, that's what happens. Intuition is accurate, which you don't know sometimes till after the fact, but it's actionable. If you think you're gonna die in a car crash, and you felt that way since you were a child, I guarantee you will not die in a car crash. It intuition doesn't tell you things. If you're about to have something land on you and end your existence in the next 20 seconds, not time to move out of the way, intuition isn't gonna tell you anything. It's gonna allow you to enjoy those 20 seconds. So if there's nothing to do about it in this moment, it's not intuition. It's a little OCD, and they're very good meds for that, or breathing exercises or whatever.
Mhm.
Intuition tells you Intuition doesn't tell you anything. Intuition illuminates the can do in any situation. It can also illuminate how to find the next belief that you want to make more solid. So if you believe, you know, all love will let you down, your intuition can help you find the next lover to let you down. That's why it is every single one of my systems start with, what are your goals? What's your target? As if you were shooting an arrow to a bullseye, because that is the most important organizer for intellect, emotions, intuition, and anything else, any other resource that you have.
Mm. And so
Wow.
how does that correlate to other people's intuition? For example, you predicted Demi Moore's resurgence right before the substance, right? So how were you able to
Well, you can predict for somebody else, you have perspective. You can't, it's just for yourself, it's very hard to predict because you have your hopes, you have your fears, you have you're not looking at anything, you're inside of it. I mean, I don't know about like your closet, But mine, I must have 100 white shirts and I can never find one. It's a mess in there. Same thing with your being. It's a wonderful, creative, complicated mess in there, and you cannot look for any. My housekeeper comes and she goes, "Oh, here's a white shirt." She's not in it.
Mhm.
So when you're in it, you can't find it. But actually, I do Soho House has been so nice to me, and they have these clubs all over the world. And whenever I go to any city, because I get bored if I'm not working, I do a free event at Soho House, and they let me have a guest list. So my boot campers, which is what I call my training, they can come and we can all meet and we can eat together and drink too much together. And so I have in those events, and the reason they're packed, they're standing room only. I mean, there's definitely super spreader events. And in those events, in 20 minutes, people who have never done any intuition, and often press comes and they're there to out me. They
Mm.
can't out me because I'm not doing anything. I'm just making them do something. They do perfectly amazing readings, and actually, we had this incredible reporter come to one named Danielle Lawler, who has since written a gazillion articles about me in London, and she came, she was doing it for her research, but she did the exercise because I bully people. People have to do the exercise. You cannot just sit there. And those Danielle and her partner are still in contact because they read each other so well.
Wow.
Wow.
It is it's innate gifts, which is why I do a boot camp. I do a group where people come together, they get training, and then for the rest of their life, they read each other because it's really important to read in community. I really don't like things like, for example, medical intuition. Practicing medicine without a license is a felony. There are people who are qualified. Now, I love medical intuition and I do it for a doctor, for their patients. There's always the doctor who says, "Oh, I'm a doctor, you can tell me." I'm like, "No, you're not your doctor.
Right.
Your doctor." But, same thing, like people call me the psychic of Wall Street. I once by mistake, I gave financial advice on a radio show, but it was totally by a slip. It was, 2008, I think, or 2007. I predicted a credit crunch, and I got lots of press for it, but that's actually so such a not okay thing to do. What if I had been wrong and some pensioner like,
Mm.
taken their money out of the market? You can't do that. Now, I read the market for people who are educated enough to know the difference, as my son says, between being incredibly psychic and batshit crazy.
Well, then I guess it did not. We shouldn't ask you to give us some stock tips then, because the answer is probably no at that point. So we'll go in a different direction, Karen.
So you were going to ask about the stocks.
I was, but
So I want to go to one of these events first of all. But
Please come. I don't know where you're located, but come to one of the events because and you can do it online every morning. Morning. I'm always on a different time zone, but everyone's seen my pajamas. I always have lipstick, but everyone's seen my pajamas.
me
And
too, surprisingly.
and people come on, and there's a little YouTube video that you can do on my Instagram to see how you do an online reading, and people tag each other and do readings. And the thing is I don't read civilians except in my workshop or for free on a live.
Mhm.
I have an ethical problem with giving that kind of information to people. I don't know if they have a therapist. I don't know their situation well enough to feel comfortable doing that. But we're a community where I do feel comfortable because there are a lot of other people supporting this community. But rank beginners give completely good readings. You tag someone, you don't know what their question is, what their target is, and you do whatever the reading system is for the day, whether it's clairaudience or precognition or remote viewing. People give amazing readings. And of course, I have a lot of professionals on the site, but because I don't read civilians, my students, if someone wants an intuitive, I send them to one of my gifted students. And so the way that I know they're still reading well and ethically is by the readings they do on the Instagram, because I don't have time to like check up on everyone
Mm.
one on one, in a phone call. So a lot of so you get the model of what does a good reading look like, and of course, I also read because the best way to model is to do what what you're doing, and a good way to read live is to read in a way that the other person has like, the group does has no idea what you're talking about, but the person you're talking to does, and by the
Mhm.
way, most of the time reading, you have no idea what you're talking about, and and the other like, I mean, I read technology firms. I this is no joke. I didn't have a TV in my bedroom until I married a television movie writer, but I don't know how to turn on my TV. And I do very, intricate technology readings. I have no idea what I'm talking about, and they're like, "Yeah, uh-huh, yeah, mhm."
Right.
I still can't turn on my TV.
Right.
So you made a comment, earlier about people like proof. Can you give
Well,
us
not people like proof. Smart people only do things where there is proof.
okay. Can you give us some examples where people have solidly seen f visible proof after learning how to use their intuition? Or
Sure. I have no memory of, and I'm not good at making things up. So I'm gonna have to give you an example, from me. What I do have is I keep a bank of emails. So sometimes I review those because people, when they have proofs, they often email me.
Mhm,
I did this. Oh, do remember one. So we did the fourth ego center, which is about value. It's about how you're compensated in the world. And one of the things, and it's your heart, but it's really your value. And so the whole group, we do one issue together as a group for about a month and a half. And
Mm.
then we switch. So we were doing wealth. We were doing value and wealth and how are you compensated? And someone in our group who was about to lose her home, with I don't know what you call it when you can't pay your mortgage and they take it.
Foreclosure?
Foreclosure, thank you very much. Um, she received an unasked for IRS refund from, like, years before that more than covered her mortgage for a few months.
Yes, please.
You
wow.
know, it was really, and by the way, it's not cost free because and here I am I always want to tell people when I have proof of something and when I'm extrapolating, but I'm extrapolating, but I am sure that in order to engage that person had to pick something uncomfortable. Like,
Mhm,
I'm gonna go out and talk to someone who I think doesn't want to talk to me,
Mhm.
and if I'm not valued, I'm gonna end the conversation and move on. Like, there's something that that person did to change the vibration that was unpleasant and probably didn't get a good result the first or second time because we, again, change in interaction. Um, but they got, and that's true across the board. I mean, I love the emails I get because they really are, at the second ego center, people's digestive problems, resolved. But that, again, I always differentiate between what is something that you is intuitively based and what is something that maybe you just reassured yourself. But at the second ego center also, here's one. We had an artist who was also, I forget what her other job was, but she had been an artist since childhood and just had never booked a show except, like, little shows in a park where you're not she got I forget, it was a German-speaking country, but she got booked a huge show, and she always applied for all these shows, like,
mm,
to her credit, she didn't give up. But when we were doing the second ego center, which is creativity, nourishment, creativity, and abundance, when you're born, if you're not nourished, you have nothing to create with. If you've nothing to create with, you can't be abundant. No magic there. It's so you go back and you do different things in the world to change that. She booked a huge show. I can't honestly say I know if she sold stuff there or whatever, because usually people, when they get what they want, they're not interested anymore.
Well, she got the show though, right? So, I mean,
yeah.
Is that the show?
yeah. So, what I'm hearing you say is that everyone has intuition. It's not just people who are advanced psychic people, right? Everyone can tap into this stuff?
Well, excuse me, most psychic people live in cat pee smelling fifth floor walk-ups hand to mouth. I mean, you know, one of the things I insist with my students, once they're trained, I make them charge a living wage.
Mhm.
Because, most intuitives aren't functional because you need the prism, you need the structure,
Right.
not just the information, we all have too much information. It's the ability to take that intuitive information, that other kind of information, and do something with it. And
Right.
that's really important. Intuitives don't tend to be successful people. They tend to be psych patients or, very codependent because they've never really formed those boundaries that
Mhm.
an ego gives us. Um, I was very lucky to have to survive early, but also to be frankly born in a socioeconomic group and in a medical family where I got a whole lot of psychiatry and education and things that grounded me.
Mhm.
Mm.
Because otherwise, I remember when I had my very first neuropsych eval at 16 because I was having anxiety, and they said, "Do you see things other people don't see, and do you hear things other people don't hear?" And I was naive enough at that point to say, "Yes." And luckily, what I was hearing about him was accurate, and he did not want it repeated. And he said to me, "You're not crazy. You're very strange, but you're not crazy." And he gave me a prescription for something to calm me down.
Oh,
Wow.
it's a good thing I was gonna ask how the walls of that psych
Ended up in
asylum.
Payne Whitney Psychiatric Center, trust
Right.
me.
That was what I was afraid you're gonna say, yeah. So you
Where, by the way, both my sisters have spent some nice time.
Mm.
some nice time, yeah, won't go there, I know what happened there, so I'm sorry to, have brought that up, but, Nobel laureate, Dr. James D. Watson.
And that's the one the movie stars, everyone says, "Oh, yeah, and Brad Pitt," but hello? James
Yes.
Watson? Hello?
Yes, James Watson, who's the co-discoverer of DNA, right? This is the like a preeminent
Watson and Crick.
scientist here, but he's endorsed your work, framing that intuition as a background sense of how things should work, facts hidden in the brain, intuition is logic. So this is not something that you're just coming up with and putting out there. These are things that very esteemed Nobel laureates are endorsing. People tend to stand up and take notice for when things like this happen.
Well, I
And
can tell by your show that I mean, we know that Einstein was the first psychic commentator, right?
he just found it very strange and scary. But yeah. um, so you dropped a little nugget earlier in the show that I want to touch on real quick. You make most of your living reading Fortune 500 companies. So again, these are people who typically wouldn't go for this type of thing, who
They're
are
probably Fortune 100 companies.
okay. Even I mean, there you go. Even more so, these are people that typically have thrown away any thought of anything woo and are here.
Can I correct you before you finish that
Please,
sentence?
by all means.
Successful business uses what works. It doesn't care how it works, often doesn't even care if it's legal. It just cares that it works. Actually, the person in crisis is more of a skeptic, even if you're proving yourself, your methods work,
Mhm.
than a business. The reason they are successful is they use what works. And we do have this big um, mythos around finding your trauma or finding your problem. And the fact of the matter is, do what works. Your problem will be the first guest who shows up at that party, and you'll find a solution. We all have things that don't work. There are solutions out there. But yes, I started not as I went to a school called Stuyvesant in New York City, which are all math and science nerds. And, I was sent there right after my very progressive mother died by my father, who thought, yeah, she should learn to at least add. Um, and I got through the test because I'm intuitive and could figure out the bubble to fill in. But didn't start from even any kind of spirituality or theology. I started because in the early '80s, institutions, the military, what they were all interested in, "Oh, ESP, how does it work? Can we see a remote location?" We didn't have the instrumentation we have now. We couldn't find even where a tumor started the same way we can now inside of a body. So brains like mine were very interesting to the scientific community. Now, by the way, machinery can do it even better than I can. You get an MRI,
Well,
it's people come in, sometimes my clients will say, "Well, what do you see in my kidney?" I'm like, "Uh, go get an MRI. It's gonna be more accurate. Like, what are you asking me?" But back then, that was not the case. We didn't even have sonograms back then.
Yeah.
wow.
And so I was part of a lot of research. So I really learned with this is a hit or this is a miss. And I stopped when 34, 33 years ago, when my son was suckling at my bosom. And a group of researchers came down from a university, an Ivy League, I will not mention by name, and they said, as I'm suckling my child at my bosom, yes, and we'll put radioactive dye in your brain and we'll be able to see what your brain does when you have a hit or a miss.
Uh,
And I was,
no thanks.
I'm done here.
Yeah.
By that point, I had been, I don't know, tested for 10 years. I was like, yeah, I'm done here.
Mm.
I'm satisfied, because I always with my family wanted to know, am I psychic or psychotic? Let me be very careful of that little line on the
Mhm.
sand.
Yeah.
And that's why I also love proof, because if you are hearing things other people don't hear and seeing things other people don't see, and they're not provable, they're not actionable in a healthy way, then you really should see a doctor.
Right. Right.
So, can I
Yes, by
can I
all
cut you
means.
off? Okay,
Yes.
so you're working with these tech companies, and these are big companies, and
Not all tech. I just do one company from each
oh,
category,
okay.
because you can't work for 2
Well, yeah,
active things, they cancel each other out.
that's true.
Right.
Well, regardless, they're company, big groups, and I can understand how if you teach an individual how to change something with using intuition and affect change on their life, and the individuals in the companies that you're reading, I guess they can understand how to do that too. But my question is, can
They don't wanna understand, they want me to predict the future. That's my job for them.
oh, okay.
Right.
I don't teach them anything, and they're not
Oh.
interested in learning. They're already brilliant at what they do, which is why they head up multi-billion-dollar companies. They want me to predict the future or do a little corporate spying or tell them what's wrong with a product or why their packaging isn't working or where they can find a commodity in a piece of on a map or that they're not interested in learning. My students, that's why teaching is so much fun. My students become just as weird as I am, and I so love that, I cannot tell you.
Oh,
Well, I guess I can still somewhat ask the question. Can people use this in community to affect changes outside of themselves? Not to get into politics, but we're having a lot of division. Can people together in the community use this intuition to help heal those divides or to do anything to shift that current narrative?
You know, the answer is yes, and there was actually a really interesting you can Google this experiment, an interesting transcendental meditation experiment done on violence, called the TM Peace Project, and, with all of these things, 50% debunk them, 50% don't,
Mhm.
but I've looked at that research, and I think it's pretty damn convincing. So, yes, you can do it simply energetically, but the other thing that tends to happen when someone's truly intuitive and not just using their intuition hit and miss to get some power in the world, which there's a lot of those
Mhm.
Svengali-ish types. When anyone tells me they have the truth, I think I'm running. I'm
mm,
not running. I am running.
right.
But, one of the things that does happen is that when you can experience our unity, when you can experience someone else's feelings, when you can experience someone else's life, someone else's point of view, even if you don't, agree even if they horrify you, when you experience that, it's very hard to be divided. I would say intuitives tend to go and my students tend to lose their differences, very quickly because all of a sudden you can experience all those points of view. Now, it doesn't mean you abdicate your own integrity, but it's a more porous boundary for understanding. And I think that one of the reasons I love intuition is that it is unifying. And I hear a lot of people say when they first begin, "Oh, when I lost my money, everyone abandoned me," or "When I have a problem, everyone abandoned me. When I got a divorce, everyone abandoned me." Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, actually, I can say my one experience in life because of intuition is when I have a challenge. Yeah, it's not like the challenge doesn't hurt, and you can Google me. I've walked into a hell of a lot of walls, but I have never not found barn raisers and communities to say, "Let me help you. How can I assist?" If one of the, again, fourth ego center lessons is, if you are not loved and appreciated, you are in the wrong place, you know?
Yeah.
And intuition does help you in that way, be in the right place because one of the things my husband had to get used to is the amount of people who will be living at my house at any given time. Um, because you do feel that unity. And it's interesting how, in a sense, generosity, not compulsive generosity and not unsmart generosity, but generosity really begets generosity. I mean, if you can take that extra moment and help somebody else, what you learn is everyone is you and you are everyone. And that is a concept in physics. It is a concept in the Prism. It is a concept in most of my work that being helpful, as long as it's not a risk to you,
Mhm.
actually helps you because we are part of that field. And people think everybody's worse off now. And a lot of the people who are saying that to me have, like, 40,000 square foot apartments or private plan. I'm like, no, most people have always had to work too many jobs and haven't had access to a lot of things. And, that it is really wonderful that it's so visible now because now we all have to doom scroll, when we're looking at the Instagram feed and
Mhm.
realize, oh, wow, maybe we need to do something about this because this is next door.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, your book is The Prism: 7 Steps to Heal Your Past and Transform Your Future. You can find that, I assume, everywhere. You just released it in April, I believe is when it came out?
A year ago,
A
April,
year ago.
yeah.
Oh, 25. That's right, that's right.
And please come on Instagram, learn to read for free, learn to use these things for free. I'm about to give a free workshop in 25 minutes. I give a lot of free workshops. It's really powerful when we do this in community,
Mhm.
and don't get sold on that you always have to get some certification and do these ridiculous things. This is a part of you,
Right.
and you need to learn to use it.
Right, right. Well, we're gonna add direct links in our show notes to your, all your stuff so that if you wanna reach out to Laura, that it's easy for you to do so. Just go to skepticmetaphysician.com, find her episode page, you'll see the links laid in directly. Laura, you are amazing. Thank you
Mm.
so much for the wonderful conversation.
You
It's been
guys are amazing. You promised me an argument. I wanna come on again, and the next time, I want you to be brutal.
oh, well, okay.
So we can have a New York argument.
Okay, all right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. She said she's gonna come back.
All right.
So, all right, Laura, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank
Thank you.